Hey everybody, this is Brian.
And this is Josh.
Welcome to the podcast for Curiosity Continuum.
Curiosity Continuum is an industry-innovating, non-traditional company passionate about growing wisdom in the next generation.
We are the essential bridge between the analog and digital worlds by building collaborative communities that unleash the power of adaptive expertise and innovation needed to thrive in the 21st century.
We combine and mix essential elements needed to empower people to succeed in new ways, not possible outside of a creative, thoughtful, diverse community of fellow curious people.
Follow us on your favorite podcast app to receive notifications of new content. If you like what you hear and want to dive deeper, visit us at curiositycontinuum.com. Thanks for tuning in. Let's start the conversation. You know, here we are, folks.
Yo. Yeah.
Here we are. You can't see us, but maybe you can.
No, I just want to get like a word in before Brian starts talking. That's all I want to do.
Go, Josh. Go.
Well, Brian has an idea for the episode, so go, my friend.
That's all you wanted to do.
That's all I want to do.
Oh, goodness.
Just the total dad vibe.
It's funny because you're not a dad.
No, but I am totally that guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm totally that dude. Like, I don't have actual kids, but I'm totally that person. That
I can vouch for that.
just like,
Yep.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yep.
Title of this episode is called Be Great at Something. I've reflected on this last week where I'm good at this. I'm okay at that. For somebody who loves to overachieve and tackle many different things. Josh is laughing because he knows how true this is about
I
me.
am laughing because I just want to say this to my friend. Brian loves to overachieve, and he's good at it. He's really good at it. Like, the things he's good at, and he lets you know he's good at them. Almost to the point of arrogance. Almost. And I think to some people that don't know Brian as I do, they would think he's being kind of rude about it. But it's
It's
not
so
that.
interesting to hear this from you now.
But it's not that. It's not that, Brian. It's not you're being rude. It's just you're good at it. And you want people to know you're good at it.
I'm going to just pause and thank my friend and have also a puzzled look on my face and thanking my friend. But let me just take a detour quick and talk about this because it's really interesting. If you, I'll just say this note and you can kind of come back to me later, folks, if you have more questions on things. One of the marks actually of people who are transracial adoptees, right, especially when you talk about the Korean diaspora that has gone over time, is that there's a disproportionate amount of us that are overachievers and they try to be multi-talented at many things. Sometimes their career arc may be varied, you know, and there's other driving action kind of going along with it because some of it is as you're processing it as a child, like how can I be accepted, right? So
Sure.
you can overachieve and it could be from a positive place. It could also be fueled from a insecure place. And I think as I've gotten older, some of those places have fallen off of me where I can understand it more to say, okay, here's where it's okay to not overachieve. Let me give you a great example of this, folks. My friend Tim is a full stack developer and has been his entire career. We've been on some professional adventures together. He's a long time friend as well. Years ago, he said, Brian, you know what you'd be really good at if you learn this? He said HTML. So that'll date some of the conversation, right? He even sent me a book, God love him, of HTML.
Right.
And he calls me like a month later. And he says, like, you know, hey, I've had a chance to start the HTML book.
Like,
and
no.
I laughed. Now I said to him, Tim, I love you. I am so grateful that you wanted me to learn this because you know how much it benefited me. I will never learn HTML. I'll never be that guy where, you know, I might know a few like tags I can go use, but I'm not going to be great at it. And it's because at that point, like I knew what took more energy for me to become good at or competent at. And there were some things that like I was just more naturally gifted at. And so
Right.
what that does though, if you are like a chronic overachiever, is that you have to start to choose not to do that. And that feels counterproductive at times. It feels like you're not doing something, especially if you're multi-talented. Like, well, I'm not achieving the fullness of myself. I met one of the really great session-based player in town when I first moved to Nashville back in 2000.
Right.
And I asked him, I said, what would you have done if you didn't play music? He said, this was the only thing I was good at. He said, so it was either this or like I just wouldn't be
I'd be
around.
on the
Just
street.
like,
Yeah.
right. Well, I mean, but he was very candid about it. And
Right.
Fantastic. He's had a very, very prestigious career. But when I say that, sometimes when you have multiple choices, it actually is hard to try to choose something. And sometimes that has come back to bite me a little bit because like people would say, well, are you great at something? And I think the thing that I always did is like I was trying to shore up weaknesses more than I was trying to always leverage my strengths. And if you hear a lot of like people like, well, just leverage your strengths and leverage your strengths and leverage your strengths.
Well, if
And that
you have one strength, but maybe you have more than one. And that's a
So
problem.
some of that-
That's an issue.
right. Well, I mean, it's a good issue to have because
Right, but when you're
You know.
young and people are saying leverage your strengths, you're like, well, I'm good at everything. And I don't mean this as like, an FU to everyone else, but I'm good at a lot of things. And
Yep.
so what do I leverage?
I think the thing where this has kind of paid off as far as Josh and my going into adulthood and different things is that it allows us almost by our nature to not fit a box, right? Like I never chose a career where I was like a super specialist, but the things that the world requires now in terms of
Yeah.
can you think across these different things? Like, right, that's a different skill set. And please don't hear me. I mean, I love me some super good specialists. I myself, when I play bass, I love being that specialist. I don't want to be the keyboard player. I don't want to be the singer.
Right.
I love playing bass. And I like playing, I don't really like playing jazz. Look, folks, for years I tried to tell myself I really like jazz. Like, I'll just tell you, I really don't. It's not my jam. It really is not. I appreciate it. I can
Right.
learn the theory that gives me things, but I really don't like playing jazz. I'm just going to tell you that now, so I'm going to out myself because for years I sought jazz gigs and I was like, is that what I really want to do? And the answer was no.
No.
For my
You
development,
didn't feel it.
yes, right. But to be great at it, I just didn't want to be. And I think that's why it never went anywhere. And I think I lied to myself to go like, I'll be great at jazz someday. And I'm at this point where now it's like going, if I'm never great at jazz, I'm okay with that. I'm really, really good at rock, at this, blah, blah, blah. So many other styles, but that one I'm not crazy about, and that's okay.
Yeah, totally okay.
With the thing that I've tried to instill in my children is that there's a context by which you should practice what you're great at. And it's something so close that you don't always recognize it. Now, Josh and I had this conversation recently where sometimes we're so 7 steps ahead that we don't do step 1 something.
Right. I mean, that's us in a nutshell. And I have seen that in other people, and I have taken it upon myself to tell them, hey, go back here. And they're like, well, what? Everyone knows that. No, they don't. That's the problem, I think. There are people that are 7 steps ahead, 10 steps ahead, and there are people that are 12, 15 steps behind. There's very few people that are in the middle. Now, Brian and I think with the things that we have done, we become more in the middle because we have tamped ourselves down to do that. So we have thought to ourselves, okay, how do we do this? How do we do that? And so we tamped it down a little bit. But I think most people don't know that middle ground. And I think that middle ground is achievable for pretty much 99% of people.
I'm going to spin the tamp down because it sounds like, have you and Josh just not tried? It's like, no, we've definitely tried. I think the thing where I've talked about how Josh communicates with somebody, it's very plain spoken. And one of the consistent pieces of feedback that I've heard from our listeners is that how we approach what we approach is very intellectual, but it's not unattainable. It's become attainable. And so you have to kind of decide, where do you try to reach forward and how far do you reach back? And that almost constraining yourself to say, here's the middle point where people can understand it, requires you to kind of have a knowledge of the arc or like the continuum of where things are. We should name the podcast Curiosity Continuum, Josh.
Yeah, because it's a curiosity we have a continuum about. That is it, right? So the whole thing is it's reaching far enough ahead, yet far enough back to grab most people. And
That's the heart of an educator.
yeah, it really is. Like, I think a real educator, not someone that's just sitting there to like make the dollars, right? And, do in and do out. And we've all known those educators. Those people are the people that have the same lesson plan for 35 years. And they're teaching the same thing. And they're not doing any work anymore. They're just pushing it forward, getting that 2-week paycheck every week. But what I really feel like Brian and I are trying to do is reach back just enough to grab some people, reach forward just enough. We're trying to be the bridge in between. And if you have questions, that's where we're at. Right?
And that's where we're great. We're great at that bridge component.
Right.
Right? And I think the thing that I've come to the realization on, and different things like where I'm great. Like, for example, if you were to ask different people over the course of my career what type of work I do, you'd get very different answers.
Sure.
You'd get, oh, he's a writer. Oh, he does websites. Oh, he's a finance guy. Oh, he's an operations guy. Who is, like, what does he do? It's like, this is what I do.
What is you?
Right. I understand
I know
how
that's
things
not
work.
proper English, but what is you? Like, what are you?
What do you do? What is you do?
Yeah.
But for me to be able to understand the state of things and to be able to introduce change is where I'm really good, right? I will never be super dyed-in-the-wool chief financial officer. Like, I have command of numbers. I know how it works. I know I can model it, and I can be very accurate in it. But the heart of me really is a creative person. Like, those numbers help to tell a story. If I can't tell a story, then I have not understood the points of interest to be able to convey that. And I think that's why podcasting has been so enjoyable, is that it gives a chance to tell a story and to make it constrained by time and constrained by maybe medium. What kind of story can I tell that's going to bring somebody one step forward, just a little bit at a time?
I think
and
that's
that's
it.
where I feel like,
Yeah. I mean, that's it, right? I mean, that's what we're trying to do. Just pull a couple people a few steps forward, and not really totally all the way, but because we might not know the end goal either. But it's to pull them forward a little bit so they're kind of where we're at, and we can push them maybe 1-2 steps beyond us, but then we're done.
in that particular capacity, I think I used to take on almost like a personal sense of failure.
Yes.
If I didn't reach all the way back or all the way up. Again, trying to overachieve and do everything. But no one person can effectively do that. That's why there's teams. That's why there's leadership. And I think as I've gotten older, especially, like the collaborative partnerships have become more and more valuable, because you don't have to be everything. You have to be the best version of you. And you have to be honest enough to say,
This is
I'm not
the limits, right? Like, I have this as a limit. And this is where Brian and I kind of like are similar. So Brian was adopted, and maybe he kind of had this like overachiever mentality because of it. I repeated the first grade. And I remember the conversation when my parents told me, "You're repeating the first grade," and how disappointed I was. Now, I don't think Brian actually has that same feeling there, but I think maybe it's the same mentality where it's like, I'm going to do this much more now so that I will never have to go backwards again. Yet, going backwards to pull somebody forward is important. And so now in our adult lives, we're like, oh, that's actually because we've processed that. We're not this just egg of a person that's kind of developing. We're actually developed now, and we're processing stuff that happened before, happened now, happened after. And so if I pull someone forward just a little bit, that's okay, because I'm pushing them forward that way. And that's what my parents thought when they held me back a year, right? We're going to hold him here because then he can go forward. But I didn't understand it. And it traumatized me, like in a way that it really traumatized me. I think I've talked to Brian about this before, and I've talked about this. It really did. Like, it was totally not cool in my mind. But that's what we're doing here in the podcast, right? We're pulling someone forward. We're pulling them up to us and then pushing just a little bit. And they're
It's
not really
taking a
having the
step
trauma
back.
though, right? Right.
Right. There's like a let's step forward, but when we talk about the contextual awareness, you have to step back in order to perceive that. And thank you for sharing as honestly. I know you've shared it before, but that was just a very candid thing. And if people didn't know that in the flow, I'm thinking about our elementary school years,
Right.
our middle school years, high school years, they wouldn't have necessarily known that. Because just by the way of because you moved towns,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
coming
and I
into a
had the
context.
benefit. I'm going to say this: a total benefit. I repeated the first grade. After my second year of first grade, I went to second grade, but we moved, so no one in the school knew I had repeated the first grade.
That context shift probably made a tremendous difference.
It made a huge difference, and I had a rough second grade, where second grade was rough. Where I was acting out. I was doing a lot of stuff I shouldn't have done. But like when Brian met me, third grade, that's when Brian met me. I was on the up and up. I was still weird. I'm always been weird. I'm always going to be weird. But Brian met me. I was on my upswing. And I thank him for that because we were both children. But even Brian's looking at me now like, you're on your upswing then? Wow, that was rough. Like, yeah. But that's where I was. And mentally in my upswing. And so he helped carry me forward through all those years until now.
Thank you, Fred.
Yeah. I mean, that's rough.
I want to.
That's rough. It's rough for me
But-
to even, it's hard for me to even understand that's what happened. But that's what happened.
Here's something I think that I want to leave people with as you shared that. Being great at something doesn't mean that you don't make mistakes. Or that
For
you
real.
had not had setbacks, or luck just didn't hit you the right way. There are things that are going to happen, and that shouldn't be the indicator that you're not great at something. Oftentimes, I think that by just the machinations of how the world is, sometimes people's greatest strengths come under the most fire because it's the thing that could actually change the world, however big or small you say like your world is, but it's also the thing that could be most weaponized is probably too strong of a word, at least put to pasture or not made as effective. If you
Right.
think that perfection is the thing that you have to achieve in order to be great. And I think that is the piece where as you realize you're definitely not perfect as you get older, those striving for perfection is the thing that will actually undo the drive because you'll never stop
Right.
self-deprecating yourself, So when you're great at something, allow people to recognize your greatness because only you will actually know the full story of how you got there or the things it may have cost you. And in the same way, share those experiences because you don't know where the other person is or something that they might feel insecure or something about where you could pull them forward as well.
Totally agree. I think let's put a comma, huh, Brian?
Until next time, this is Brian
And this is Josh.
for Curiosity Continuum.